A typical life for a Kenyan is if you have a job, which is good, there's a large majority, or I don't know if it's majority, but there's a large percentage that are unemployed. But usually you wake up early, eat your breakfast, and then if you have your job, they will get to their job. They are very, I guess, dedicated to their work. For those that have jobs, they're pretty hardworking, but a large percentage don't have jobs, and so they just kind of meander around. But as far as transportation, the best way that you can commute in Eastern Africa is through their public transportation, unless you have a car. But their public transportation in Kenya is called matatus, and they're just like little vans or small buses. And in Tanzania, they call them dala-dalas. So the same thing, just different names. And so what you do is there's different routes, and they'll specify their routes. It's not like here in the States where it's like, oh, you go on Green Line to this. They just yell out where they're going. And there's also matatu like stations where each of the different areas you know where they're going. And to be honest, it's kind of confusing at first, but if you're with someone, your companion that you'll be getting there with, they know the routes, they know where to find everything, so it's not too hard. You just follow them and then pick up on where all the different things are. But yeah, there's no like printout or anything that you can get to be able to navigate through the different areas. But jump on a matatu, they'll yell out where they're going, and you ask them the price. So if you ask them in English, it'll always be more expensive. If you ask them in Swahili, it'll be cheaper. And if they give you an outrageous price, you can bargain with them. That's basically everything in Kenya and Tanzania it's according to what you agree upon as the price. So you always argue, especially if it's in a new area where missionaries aren't known yet. You'll have to bargain the price because they'll find out that you actually don't have a lot of money, that you're just kind of poor like everybody else. But once they see, if you're white especially, they think that you have a lot of money because you're a tourist. But once they get beyond that, then they're like, oh, yeah, they'll give you the normal price. So what you do is get on, and then they'll have a conductor, so one person will drive, and then their conductor will shake their hand, and it just has a bunch of change in it, and you pay them, and they'll tell you the price for it. And then you just ride. You're not guaranteed a seat, or even if you do have a seat, a full seat, they just pack you in like sardines. So I guess get used to that. The people are nice though. I mean, they're used to being smashed together, even if you're hot and sweaty, like doesn't matter. You just all jump in, get smashed in together. They don't care. I would suggest though, I didn't ever get there wasn't a huge problem with stealing or other things, but if you're wearing a backpack, I mean, it's just common sense that when you get on the matatus or other places where people are going to be pressing up against you, you just swing it around and hold it against your chest or your front, so that way you can see if people are getting into your bag. And I never really had any issues, but I mean, I've heard of missionaries doing it, or having issues, but it's because they didn't swing their backpacks around. Also, as far as like pickpocketing and other things, that's also where a lot of pickpocketing happens. But at the same time, just be smart. Don't have things in your pockets. Where I carried all my money and things was in my white handbook. And so it's like if someone was going to steal from me, they'd have to rip it off of my chest, which I think is a lot harder and more obvious. So, and that's, I think, pretty typical for a lot of missions, is that missionaries will carry it in their front pocket. So that's basically how you get around in both countries. You walk a lot. Kenyans walk a ton. That's why they're good runners for the Olympics, especially the Maasai. But also, you will walk a lot as a missionary as well. So my suggestion as far as footwear is, they say in the mission packet, or at least when I got it, that you can wear sandals. Don't wear sandals, because just understand that whatever is on your feet, you'll be walking through the slums with, and there's open sewers and stuff. So unless you want that open sewage in your shoes or in your sandals, don't wear them. So I would suggest just good walking shoes. I mean, I wore Echoes, but I mean, you don't have to go with that brand or whatever. Just choose a good walking shoe that you can get a lot of miles out of, and that's comfortable, because you will be walking a lot. Kenyans, they're still nice, but when you compare them to the Tanzanians, they kind of are viewed as mean. But I just think oftentimes they're more honest, which is, a good thing, but also they come off a little bit more rash, or so that you'll get used to that. And as far as like talking to Americans or Europeans, they're still very nice. They're just not Tanzanian nice. So very kind people. A little more harsh than the Tanzanians, but tribalism is very much a part of Kenyan culture. I've mentioned a few times there's 42 tribes, and if you ask a Kenyan, like, who are you, they'll say usually their name, and they'll be like, and I'm, their tribe. They always, or oftentimes will say, and I'm Kikuyu, I'm Luya, I'm all these things, because it's very much a part of their identity and so forth. A lot of the time they will only marry people within their tribe or like cousin tribes, and they won't marry like across, like, because there are like tribes that are in conflict with each other, especially politically. And so that's why in the election times in Kenya's history, especially most recent history, there's been some conflict and some violence regarding the elections. But as a missionary, you don't have to worry too much about it. They make sure that you stay indoors during those days and stuff. So I know that Africa has like this stereotypical dangerous part of the world. I think you're fine. My mom cried when she heard that I was going to Kenya and Tanzania. I rejoiced. I actually wanted, my cousin served in Uganda, and I always wanted to go to Uganda, but I got to go right next door, which I'm so happy. I love my mission. And so you'll be fine. Be smart, but you're going to be fine. But back to Kenyan people, they know they're very tribalistic, but they're very kind and very honest. Like Tanzanians, they are so nice that they will often tell you that they're going to be there. But I think this is common in every mission, regardless of where you are. People promise that they're going to do things, but they don't. And so you just have to get used to that. Also, for both African nations, there is no rush or like hurry in Kenya or in Tanzania. In fact, they have a saying that's haraka haraka aina baraka, which means hurrying brings no blessings. And so like you will set appointments, and just know that if you set it for 1 o'clock, that means that in their mind it's any time after 1. So it could be between 1 and 5, I don't know. So you just have to help the people understand what you mean by 1 o'clock. So I would jokingly say 1 o'clock Mzungu time, which is like white man time, and then they will laugh. And the thing is that like in America, we have like this conflict of race and other things. You should never be disrespectful or like make racist jokes, but you're white and they are not, and they know it. In fact, the little kids will come up to you and they just chant Mzungu, Mzungu, which means white person, white person, white person. And it's just something, it gets annoying, but you get used to it. And they don't really care about race. So it's not like, I don't know, you don't have this big conflict regarding those things. And if you're a white missionary, you soon forget that you're white unless the little kids are chanting, and I don't know, you see yourself just as a Kenyan after a while, or a Tanzanian. Kenyans also, I mentioned this earlier, but they're hardworking if they have a job, but a lot of the time they don't. And so you'll see oftentimes men especially like just sitting around or trying to find work or just chatting with friends and other things, which can be discouraging for them. But my advice, some people get mad or they are quick to judge these people that seem to be just being lazy. But if you didn't have a job, what would you do with your day? I mean, it's tough. These people are willing to work. There has, because of some poorly planned like humanitarian aid, there's been kind of a tradition of reliance, which is not really their fault as well. But the people are good, they're hardworking. Just some traditions possibly need to be changed or altered within. It's not really Kenyan tradition, it's more just like recent traditions of reliance, but you'll see those and you'll understand what I mean when you get there. It's kind of hard to explain. Kenyans are great though. They're funny. They ride bikes everywhere in addition to like riding matatus and other things. And they stack everything. And same with Tanzanians. They'll stack, you know, pieces of wood like 10 feet high on their bike and just be pedaling around. And as missionaries, a lot of the time you'll have like competitions of who can get the best or funniest picture of something being put on back of a bike. So you'll see goats or entire families just all on one bike, and it's pretty funny.